Hi everyone, here we are starting in Chapter 2, Lesson 2, the last part, and we will be talking about the present tense today. So we have already had some sentences that we've worked on. Just as review, I'm going to remind you of what some of those are. Okay? Present tense sentences, okay? So we've already done a couple, such as Je m'appelle, or c'est un livre, or c'est le 3 septembre, or even je ne comprends pas. What you'll notice about each of these sentences here is that they follow the typical sentence structure, which is to say that you have a subject and a verb. Okay? A subject is not like the topic of your sentence, as in what is it about. It's the person, place, or thing that is doing the action. Okay? Subject is a person, place, or thing that is doing the action. Okay? The verb is the action itself. Okay? So examples of things in English that we might have would be I study, or you talk, or he lives, or we are. Actually, I'm going to put that over here on the other side. We are, you all, let's say run, and let's say they eat. Okay, so that's our typical present tense sentences or beginnings of sentences with English. Sometimes we have them showing up a little bit differently, and they look more like this. I am studying. You are talking. He is living. We are being. Like we are being quiet. You all are running. They are eating. But in either case, both of those are your present tense in English. In French, we only really have one way of doing this, so you won't have like I study as well as I am studying. They're all just present tense. So sometimes in English, we have what's called this helping verb, right? He is living. The is, the am, the are, that's the helping verb. But in French, it's more like the original version of what we were talking about. I study, you talk, he lives. So when we do that, we only have one subject and one verb. Okay, no helping verbs. So some examples of this would be over here at the beginning of our section. We have some examples. Let's see if I can get a little highlighter here. You have a subject, tu. If you remember what that means you in the informal. And then aime, that's my subject. My mieux here is just actually a little extra word. So you like. J'adore. Here's my subject, je. My verb is adore, I adore. J'étudie, subject, je. Étudie, verb, I study. Nous commençons, here we go, subject, nous, we. Commençons, verb, to commence or to begin. So you get the idea that every time you have one subject, you'll have one verb. One subject, one verb. One subject, one verb. Okay. So first we need to talk about all of the subjects that we have. Okay? So in French, actually I'm just going to pop down here. Here are your subjects' pronouns. Okay? We've already talked about several of these, but here are the rest of them. Okay. you're going to want to memorize just the part first that's highlighted. So that's all I'm focusing on, these two sections. Oops. Okay. So here we go. You want to memorize that je means I. Tu means you for the informal. Make sure that you know that that's informal. That's really thick. I wonder if I can make that thinner. Informal, right? Il is for he. We've done that already with il parle, elle parle for languages. Elle is for she, and on is for one. We did that briefly with on étudie. So we've really already gone through je, tu, il, elle, and on. These are all on the singular side of things, which is to say the subject only has one person. On the plural side, we have nous parlons. We speak. So nous is we. Vous is you, and that can either be formal and singular, or it can be the you plural, whether that's formal or informal, it doesn't matter. But vous will be for both. Il plural for they. This is for a group of any number of people that has at least one male. So it could be a huge group of women, and all of a sudden, boom, you've got one male, and then the entire group is considered il plural, which is masculine. There does exist, of course, a group of only women, and then, of course, they're going to be called they in English, but in French, you'll still see the gender of the person here. So once again, you've got these two separations here, these two columns. It's very important that as you start studying verbs and subject pronouns, that you do it in exactly this way, namely that you have the singular on the left and the plural on the right, and also that you line them up. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you how they have to be lined up. Your je and your nous have to be lined up, okay? Why? Because that is first person. That's not going to work. Okay? So your first person, that's as yellow as I can get it. Okay, first person. Your first person means that it is or includes you yourself, or maybe I should say I. It includes I. Right? Then your next one, let's change colors here. Your next row here is going to be your second person. So the tu and the vous here. Okay, so that is second person, which is to say it either is you or includes you. And by you, I'm talking about you're talking to another person, but that person is in the room and you can speak to them. And then the last one, let's use blue. All the rest of these are third person. Il singular and il plural, elle singular and elle plural, and on singular, okay? Which is done as one speaks, but informally can also kind of mean we, which is weird, but it is done as singular. So going back to this, this is third person. So it doesn't include I as the speaker, it doesn't include you as the listener. It includes only the person outside of the room or multiple people outside of the room. So person outside of the conversation. Okay? But you have to absolutely get in the habit of setting yourself up like this, because as we go through the rest of our learning this semester and next semester, you'll start seeing patterns that only work if you set it up as this. So it's very important. Okay. One last thing about subjects is that both the je and the tu end in a vowel, which is to say that when you have the next word, you have to watch out, because we've talked already about vowels and what can happen. So for example, when you had le or you had la next to a vowel, so for example, étudiant and étudiante, in French, they don't like the way that that sounds, so they're going to take off that previous vowel and they're going to turn it into a apostrophe. That can only happen on the letters E, and occasionally the only one that is the exception to that is the la. okay, which is the only one. But je, for example, can indeed become J apostrophe. Tu, though, you can't ever take off a U, so it will always remain tu. Okay, so just note that this one can also be J apostrophe. Okay, so that's our subjects. Okay, we're going to do an exercise in class with that. When we come back down to this exercise here, dialogue en classe, complete the following dialogue with the subject, pronouns, or forms of parler. So it's like if you already have, you know that you need a subject and verb. If you already have the verb in there, parler, then you'd have to guess what is the base, what is your subject. So you'd be filling in with possibly je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle, plural. Okay? But before we do that exercise, we're going to need to talk about how to identify a verb and how to form one and use one in French. So we're going back up here. We've talked about subjects. And then the second thing is talking about our verbs. In this exercise over here, you'll notice probably that there are some patterns that are happening here. So j'adore and j'étudie, well, they both end in an E. But for the new forms, nous commençons, nous aimons, nous travaillons, those all end in an ONS. And so you'll see that that pattern does indeed exist. We're going to go down here to how to do the present tense with a regular ER verb. So why is it called a regular ER verb? First of all, of course, it's because you have an ER at the end. And there's going to be a whole long list later in class today that you see a list of verbs with all end in ER. So what you do is you take your infinitive verb. This is called an infinitive, okay? When it's done in this very general form, okay? And it always has that to, like, to love before it. To study, to ski, to eat. That's the infinitive. In French, it's only one word. The to is within it. So what you're going to do is you're going to chop off your last two letters, your ER, and then you're going to add endings. E for je, ES for tu, I for il, elle, or on, ONS for nous, EZ for vous, and ENT for either the il or the elle form. So this one is done for aimer. I'd like to practice doing parler briefly using that pattern. Okay, so remember what I said. What you do is you have your infinitive verb and it ends in an ER. You take off ER and assuming that you set up your page the right way, then you're going to be able to add those endings on and it will make sense. So remember those endings are E, ES, E, ONS, EZ, ENT. Okay, so let's say that I'm going to now do this for parler. My infinitive means to speak. I'm going to take off my E and my R. So my root here for all of my conjugations are what you do when you change it from the infinitive to being how it is actually spelled with je or with tu, etc. Your conjugations here, I'm going to make this a little thicker so you can really see it. Okay. My root here is parle. So I'm going to say je parle with an I. Tu parles with an ES. Il, elle, on parle with just an E. Nous parlons with an ONS. Vous parlez with an EZ. Il, elle parle with an ENT. So now instead of to speak, I have I speak, je parle. You speak, tu parles. He speaks, il parle. She speaks, elle parle. One speaks, on parle. On the plural side, we speak, nous parlons. Y'all speak, vous parlez. They speak, il or elle parle. So you'll also notice that in terms of the pronunciation, all of these four will sound the same. Parle, 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 parle. Okay? And they're all silent endings. So at that L, you'll just simply stop speaking. Okay. Other verbs that are, we're going to do this exercise then together. For example, like I said, if you see parler, if you see a verb, you're filling it in with a subject. So here we go. This first one, tout le monde, that's done like il singular. It means everyone. I see the verb here, so I need a subject here. And I look at my ending of my verb and I say, oh, it says an EZ, so which of the endings matches with that? That's my vous form. So therefore, I'm going to fill in vous. Okay? All right, go to the next one. Oui, nous, blank, français. All right, after the blank, do I already have a verb? No, I don't. Before the blank, do I already have the subject? Yes, I do. This is my subject. So if I have a subject, then I need a verb. How do I do parler for nous form? I'm going to go back to my endings and say, okay, I've got nous form. I drop off the ER from the infinitive and add O and S. So that's what I'm going to fill in here. Nous parlons français. Okay? I will have you do this exercise and check your answers with a partner. It would be good if you tried to do this exercise at home first before we come into class. Note that sometimes there are some correct answers it might seem like there are multiple correct answers, but you'll have to look at context to figure out which is the right one. And that mostly happens because, remember, you've got a couple of conjugations here, je parle and il, elle, on parle, that are spelled the same way. And so you're going to have to look for context to figure out which is the appropriate one. So that'll be the exercise that we start off with. After that, we get to apply that same rule of all of those rules, right? The EES, EONS, EZ, ENT. We get to apply that onto a ton of verbs in French. The great thing about French is that it has a very, very large list of regular verbs. It has a list of irregulars as well, and we'll get to those as we go on. But here's your first big list of regular ER verbs. This covers the majority of verbs in French. They are regular ER. Of course, these are not the majority of all the verbs in the French dictionary, but they all will follow, most of them will follow these rules. So we're going to go through and we're going to make sure that you feel comfortable not only saying and also knowing what the meaning is for each of these verbs. So let's start. Here we go. Adorer. Say that with me. Adorer. That means to love or to adore. Aimer mieux. Aimer mieux. That's to prefer or to like better. In fact, aimer is the true verb here. That's the thing you'll conjugate. You'll take off the ER and add the endings. The mieux will actually just stay the same the whole time. Chercher. To look for. Chercher, as in to search. That may be another good transition for you. Commencer, to begin. Commencer, or to commence if that helps you remember it. Danser, danser. Demander, demander. Notice that it is to ask for, it doesn't mean to demand. Détester, détester. Donner, donner, as in to donate. Écouter, écouter. Étudier, étudier. Remember that there's no S in there. Fumer, fumer. Habiter, habiter. Remember here that your H is silent. Manger, manger. Penser, penser. as in to be pensive, is to think. Porter, porter, to wear. It also means to carry. Regarder, regarder. We have this word in English, to regard something. Rêver, rêver. Don't forget the little accent circonflexe. Skier, skier. Travailler, travailler. I-L and I-L-L in French sounds like a Y. Travailler. It means to work. It does not mean to travel. It looks like it does, but it doesn't. Travailler, to work. Trouver, trouver. Visiter, visiter. It's important that you know that this visiter, this only works for places. I can't use this for people. So what you want to do is you want to memorize all of these words first and foremost as vocabulary. Okay, so the best way to do that is either to be creating flashcards, although I don't typically recommend flashcards with my students. What I like to do is recommend that they do something like this. Taking a piece of paper, like this, folding it down the center. That's not a very good piece of paper. And over here writing the French word, and over here writing the English word. Okay? And picking a list of 5 to 10 words that you write down, you study, you listen to on the audio, and then you try to memorize them. And then what you'll do is you'll flip over this first top thing, and you'll flip it over so that it's hidden from you. And you'll write out your list of 5 to 10, again, from memory. Go back, flip it up, and make sure that everything is right. Flip it again, so it's hidden from you. Write it out from memory. Again, keep flipping and doing that 3 times minimum. Probably 10 times maximum is enough, or until you're getting them all correct. Once you're done doing this column, then do the same thing on the other side. It's just a great way to save paper, and you'll actually memorize this much more efficiently by doing that as opposed to flashcards. So memorize these verbs as vocabulary first, okay? And then you need to, of course, memorize those endings. Okay, how to do that, right? Which is the taking off ER and adding E, ES, E, ONS, EZ, ENT. This is also the kind of thing that you might want to write down and memorize like you would here as the system for which to do these verbs. Okay? There are 2 on this list that have a little asterisk, and that is commencer and manger. So I'd like to show you why those have an asterisk. Let's come down here and do these 2 verbs. So remember, commencer, okay? It means to begin. I'm going to do this just like I would all the others. I'm going to drop off ER, and I'm going to add E, ES, E. And of course, this could be L as well, or it could be on. Nous, ONS, vous, oops, easy, and il, elle, ENT. So if I say these out loud, this is what it sounds like. Je commence, tu commences, il commence, nous commençons, vous commencez, il commence. You might have noticed that this new form just doesn't sound good. Okay, this new form didn't sound good. And why is that? It said because that C that I had sounded like a hard C, like a K. So I don't like that sound in French. So the French people, what they've done is they've made basically a little exception so that it will still sound good. So they want that soft C. So the way to get a soft C in French is to either have CI, CE, or a C with a CD on it. If you have a CA, a CO, a CU, that's going to be that hard K sound, versus this would be sort of the soft C. So the quickest fix for me here is just going to be to add the CCD on it. Boop. And now it no longer sounds like that K sound. It'll sound like that S sound. So once again, my new form is weird. I'm just going to make sure that I put on the CCD for my ending. Manger is quite similar. Manger means to eat. I'm going to conjugate it just the way that I normally would. Drop off ER. And I have je mange. Tu manges with an ES. Il or elle or on mange with an E. ONS. Easy. ENT. If I say these, I have je mange, tu manges, il mange, nous mangeons, vous mangez, il, elle mange. So once again, it's my new form that just doesn't sound good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at, okay, how do I make a soft G sound? Soft G versus hard G. Okay, my hard G sound happens with a GA, GO, GU, kind of like CA, CO, CU. My soft G will be GI or GE. So I don't have an accent that I can add on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add a letter in the middle of my conjugation. So I'm going to change colors here. I'm going to add an E into this. Okay? So my new form here is nous mange with a little sneaky E in there. ONS, nous mangeons. Okay? So nous mangeons and nous commençons have a slight irregularity there so that you get the correct sound. All right. Back to this, and this is going to be what we end on today. This is the exercise that we're also going to be doing in class, as well as just some practice on conjugation. But here we go. This is an exercise you may want to try to do on your own before you come to class. Write out a couple of sentences. Curiosité. Find out how your classmate spends his or her free time by asking whether they do this thing. So they have conjugated this for you already as il or elle écoute. De temps en temps la radio. He or she listens from time to time the radio. So what you want to do is you want to create a question by doing this in the tu form with the correct ending, es, tu écoutes. And you're just adding a question mark on the end of it. But everything else is basically copy-paste after that. So one partner will ask the tu question, and then one partner will answer with the je answer with the correct ending, j'écoute. Not that you can actually hear the difference between tu écoutes and j'écoute. Écoute and écoute sound the same. But you can just kind of get that answer figured out pretty easily, I think, with your partner. If you have a negative and you want to say, no, I don't do this thing, then you could add a ne and a pas. Actually, that kind of didn't let you see it. You'd add ne pas around your verb here, okay? So we'll talk about that in class. Another way to kind of give some sort of a modification on the verb, like, oh, I only do it sometimes or do it rarely, is to add one of these words here. Toujours is always, souvent, often, quelquefois, sometimes, rarement, rarely. I'm going to say those again. Toujours, souvent, quelquefois, rarement. And I would just add that into my sentence. So, for example, I could say, je mange toujours. I always eat. Or maybe I want to specify, je mange toujours un cookie. Okay? I always eat a cookie before bed, for example. Well, maybe if I don't always do it, maybe I only do it often. Je mange souvent un cookie. Or maybe I only do it sometimes. Je mange quelquefois un cookie. And maybe rarely, Je mange rarement un cookie. So all you're doing is you're adding that adverb right here. These are all called adverbs. They describe the verb. You add them right after the verb. Okay. A couple of other ones would be d'habitude. Sometimes these go at the beginning of the sentence. D'habitude means habitually. En général. And de temps en temps. This MP is a nasally N sound, and you'll get a little liaison here between there. De temps en temps. From time to time. Okay? All right, so that is another exercise that we will be doing. Make sure to spend some good time memorizing this list of verbs up here, as well as making sure that you have these endings memorized. That's probably going to be the most important thing that you work on before class with us together. All right, I will see you guys soon. Talk to you later.